I gasped. It was a normal response when someone punched you in the gut. Totally expected. Totally. I stared at my knees inches from my face as I wrestled air back into my lungs. "Not so smart now, are ya?" Tommy quipped. The latest black, red, and blue Adidas did their utmost to cover his giant feet. I stumbled back into the lockers behind me as those same sneakers stepped toward me. "I know," I coughed. "I know you see me as an authority figure," I gasped, using the wall to support me into a standing position. "But transferring your daddy issues to me won't make him love you." He stepped forward, twisting his torso as his fist flung toward me. Unfortunately for him, I had already let myself fall to the ground and his fist slammed into the locker. It left a dent. And some blood. He roared, and the echo down the empty halls only intensified the sound. His eyes blazed with an anger I've never felt, but have seen all too often. He grabbed my shirt collar and lifted me to my feet, slamming my back against the brick wall on the other side. He bared his teeth in a malicious grin as he brought his other hand up, fingers spread, and slowly curled it into a fist. He wanted to see my fear. I watched as his eyes widened, showing his sclera, and his pupils dilated. 3. My brows rose, pressing together at the center, and my eyes widened. 2. I pressed my hands, palms forward against the wall about 8 inches from each side. 1. My mouth dropped open, and a whimper exited on cue. "Mr. Montgomery!" A sharp voice tightly pronounced each syllable exactly. Tommy froze. His eyes widened further in shock while his grin fell limp. His fists loosened, but as he straightened away from me, they clenched again at his sides. He couldn't even look Mrs. Perkins in the eye, but stared at her dull brown, low-heeled shoes. The woman did have bad taste in fashion, I mused. "We have a zero-tolerance policy in this school for fighting. I am shocked in you." I gripped my stomach and groaned. "I need to see Miss Robin." As I turned away, I felt a corner of my lip curl up involuntarily. "Mr. Graves." The principal gave my name the same intonation as Tommy's. I forced my frozen smile to reverse itself before I turned to face her. Unlike Tommy, I looked her in the eye. Her eyes were the same flat brown as her shoes, with just as little character. Except the flint that peeked out. She suspected something. "Come to my office as soon as nurse has seen to you." "Yes, ma'am," I replied meekly. "Directly after, Mr. Graves. Do you understand?" I barely kept myself from gulping and ducked my head timidly in affirmation. She stared until I dropped my eyes, then turned and clipped down the hall, Tommy in tow. I pulled in a deep breath, then hacked out a couple coughs when my abdomen reminded me it had recently been introduced to an old friend. Taking shallower breaths, I turned and headed toward medical. That hadn't gone quite to plan, but it would do. For now. I would play my part to the end. I had no other choice.